at some point, you have to be able to take the betrayed partner and say, hey, I'm going to put you on a level ground with me, even though it's frightening, even though it's scary. And we know that is. But hopefully, he or she has done the work needed to demonstrate they deserve a second chance.
Partner betrayal is disorienting, heartbreaking, and results in absolute confusion for the betrayed partner. You worry that nothing in your life was real, and you fear that you will never be able to trust your spouse or yourself again. Well, welcome to the Rebuilding Trust podcast with Carol the Coach. I'm Carol Jurgensen-Sheets, aka Carol the Coach, and what I can promise is that when you listen to my podcast, you'll begin to believe that there is hope. We will be hearing from experts all over the world who specialize in problematic sexual behavior, sex addiction, and infidelity. Together, we will be asking them the hard questions about how you both can rebuild safety, find strengths, grieve and mourn what you had, what you never had, and what you fear you will never find again. The truth is that rebuilding trust is possible, and I am going to show you the steps to working together to build a whole new marriage based on the honesty, authenticity, and transparency that your marriage deserves. Rebuilding Trust with Carol the Coach.
Well, welcome everybody to Rebuilding Trust, the podcast. And I'm Carol Jurgensen-Sheets, and I have the great Eddie Capparucci here. And I say great because he was one of the first that really helped men to look at their inner child, to look at the different children within themselves, and get to heal that so that they could be better men, better people, and feel some real sense of self. So Eddie, we've got a very sensitive subject to talk about today. It's not the inner child, but I want to thank you for that work because you're one of the first that has done that.
Well, thank you, Carol. I appreciate it. And as I've told you before, and I'll continue to tell everybody I meet, you were a mentor for me. Like I said, I didn't even know you were a mentor. When I was back doing my graduate work, I was listening to you faithfully, and I've learned so much from you before I ever sat across from a client to begin with. So thank you for what you've done.
Well, I appreciate it. And actually, Eddie and I said a prayer before we got on here because I think it was probably 2 years ago on a Sunday, I sent him an email about a terribly difficult and tough client, or I should say couple. And he said, I'd love to talk to you about this dilemma in general. And I said, anytime. And he said, it was Sunday night. And he says, are you free right now? And I said, yes, I am. And so we started the dialogue a couple years ago. And I know that I'd asked you to come on the podcast. I really wanted you to promote something that you needed, but you were still hankering to talk about this issue. And I said, yeah, let's do it because we're here to help couples.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Well, I'm going to first say that what you just said, that I am your mentor, and I want to say back at you. But I also want to say, Eddie, I feel like since my work has started with Help or Heal, as soon as the book was out and I was running the groups and I was helping men with it, and even sometimes couples, because as you well know, our partners sometimes work harder than the sex addict in recovery. I mean, they just want to know, they want to be safe, they want to understand. And I've said this 1,000 times, that book so fell short. It fell short of what we needed to do next, which was, I had been saying, the partner's in the driver's seat, the partner's in the driver's seat, the partner's in the driver's seat. This happened to her, usually her. Now we're doing a lot of hymns, but we need to help them be safe. And then what I realized is that also perpetuated kind of a sense of empowerment on the partner side, which was great, but it really way skewed their ability to come back together. And so I went, oh, in doing a service, I did a disservice. And so that's when I wrote Help Them Heal.
Right.
And that book helped couples to heal together because I want them to come back, especially in the grief, anger, mourning stage, to decide, are they going to forgive? Are they going to make choices to surrender that and move forward together?
Yeah, because Carol, as you know, if they don't come back, the marriage will not heal the way it should. And that's why, again, that power differentiation, which again happens at the beginning, we understand it. There's nothing wrong with it. But at some point, you have to be able to take the betrayed partner and say, hey, I'm going to put you on a level ground with me. Even though it's frightening, even though it's scary, and we know that is. But hopefully he or she has done the work needed to demonstrate they deserve a second chance.
Mm-hmm. And even perhaps a third or fourth, not in terms of betrayal, but in terms of their lack of relational skills.
Yes, indeed, because that, if we look at it, okay, and we see that these relationships that are still in crisis 5, 10, 30 years later, right, it's not because, most of the time, it's not because of betrayals that are still going on. It is because the men do not have the relational skills to be able to endure, or I don't like the word endure, I'm sorry, to be able to manage what is going on as their partner is grieving.
Yeah, 100%. And as I do with all my guests, I ask them to send me a bio, to send me some questions, and maybe even a title for what we're going to work on. And I remember Eddie and I talking about maybe assertiveness. And then he reminded me, no, we were going to talk about why some partners can't heal. And so the title he chose was, Is Healing Elusive for Some Betrayed Partners? Now I changed that, Eddie, because I wanted to say, why is healing so difficult for some partners? And that's what we're going to talk about. Why is it? I mean, I just outed myself and said, in helping couples to heal, I had made some mistakes when I was working with the addict. I did not include the partners soon enough. And, that's what my IRCM is all about, getting them both in the office from day one so they get resourced, they can help each other heal if they so want that.
Correct. And that's a big question too. But there are times when the betrayed partner is not ready to sit there side by side in those settings. So yeah, I mean, and you sit there and you say, oh, I made a mistake. First and foremost, one, you are a pioneer in this, okay? And pioneers are allowed to be able to make adjustments to their work. And I applaud you for doing that, because there are some pioneers who stick with their guns. They're like, no, this is the way it is. This is what I believe. And we're watching the landscape change. And you didn't. You said, hey, you know what? I think we can shift things. And that's what you've done. You've made adjustments in the different theories that you put out there.
Well, and I really felt like empathy was missing, but it's not just a recovering man or woman's problem with compulsive problematic sexual behavior. It's also a mutual empathy. I know it wasn't popular at first, but I said, believe it or not, the person that has betrayed you is now working out of the addiction and is so traumatized by what they've done to you.
Yeah.
In addiction, they couldn't see it. They didn't want to see it. It's part of addiction not to see it.
Correct. And I brought up the point, I guess it was a couple of years ago, about the fact of, is the betrayer also being triggered as we're going through this healing process. And I know some people rolled their eyes at me like, how could you even go there? But the fact of the matter is that they are triggered. Now they're triggered because of their own fears and their own insecurity. And that's why, again, when people say, wait a second, we're investing so much energy and time and resources into helping them to be able to learn how to be more emotionally engaged, to validate, to do that. Why can't they implement? Well, they can't implement because they don't know how to emotionally regulate. And if they can't emotionally regulate, then that drives all those fears that we're talking about right now. So therefore, again, I believe, and this is the last couple of years, I think that emotional regulation is the cornerstone for recovery. That we need to be able to make sure when we are especially working with the betrayer, that at the very beginning, not just giving them the tools and the skills to stay sober, but also to regulate. Because in the long run, that is what's going to be able to help them when they get the other tools that allow them to be more emotionally responsive. Now they'll be able to implement. Because if we don't do that for them, we'll give them all the skills in the world. But once she says we need to talk, it all goes out the window because his autonomic nervous system starts to flutter.
Right. And so what I know you and I had hoped to do today is to start a dialogue about how can we as a helping profession contribute towards the healing of our couples as opposed to contaminate.
Yes.
And, so I'm going to digress for 1 second. Yes, my Sex Help with Carol the Coach podcast was the first podcast in the world on sex addiction. And I really didn't know how impactful that was going to be. Around 34 listeners the first week to 3,000 to 32,000. I mean, it just got, and that was weekly for a while because people had nowhere to go to hear about what was going on in the world of an addict. And so now, here's where it may be unpopular. Now there are hundreds, if not maybe not thousands of podcasts. And many, many, many of them are 100% unbelievably educational, informative, supportive, interviewing the experts in the field, just like I did. But I mean, it's just, they're so well done. And yet, what I have found in some of these podcasts, with some of these communities, with some of the partner support groups, it's a place to bash the person, man or woman, that is doing the recovery.
Can we add one more group into that? Can we add one more group? Some therapists and coaches.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yes, I would agree.
But we have hurt healers who are still hurting, unfortunately.
Thank you for adding that. And so I remember in my own journey, I'm not a partner, I'm not an addict. I asked Patrick Carnes, is this going to be a problem? I'm not an addict and I'm not a partner. And he said, no, you don't have to have cancer to cure it.
That's true.
But the truth is, I really feel like I supported a few organizations that ended up being toxic, negative. They had the addict in purgatory waiting to do a deep dive into hell.
Yep.
And I even had one group, I had somebody contact me and said, this group that I was supporting, this person reported and actually shared a screenshot where the organizer of that group said, do not listen to Carol the Coach podcasts. They are supportive and affirming of the addict. I don't want you to do it. Her literature and I don't even think I had a book out yet. Her literature and her podcast are off limits to our community.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I was having her on my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, wow, this is more than a hurting partner. This is a revengeful partner.
Yes. Exactly.
And a professional.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody who had hired a whole group of professionals to work under her. And I remember I did get with her immediately and said, did you really do this? I got a screenshot. And she said, no, I would never put something like that up. I'll get that taken down right away. And she did. But I knew that she did organize that because I was passionate that sex addicts, if given the skills, if given the tools, they really wanted to help their partner heal. And ultimately, although we just said not every partner wants that healing, wants to come into a session right off the bat.
Right.
What I've noticed is the partners of sex addicts are more forgiving, offer more grace when they understand about addiction versus my infidelity clients where they see that as more of a choice. And it is more of a choice. Infidelity is more of a choice.
Yes, correct.
So I remember being battered by an organization just for my beliefs. And you've seen some of that too with your clients and with yourself, haven't you?
Yes, in fact, it was, I guess it was about 6 months ago. One of my clients during the session said to me, he and his wife belong to a group that's run by one of our peers for couples. And in that session, somebody mentioned Eddie Capparucci. Why they're talking about me, I have no idea, but that's what they're doing. And she said, you know what, Eddie Capparucci is a very talented man. However, he's way too soft on his men. And when the client said that to me, I kind of laughed. And I was like, and he did too. I go, soft. I go, the last thing I am is soft with anybody. I'm a big believer in accountability. But yes, we see a lot of that out there. But before we continue, and I just want to say one thing because I think it's really important. That you and I, we both understand that the betrayed partners are never responsible for the situation that we're in. Okay, that responsibility belongs completely to the person who broke the trust. And what we're interested in is making sure that betrayed partners receive every possible tool to help to support their recovery. All right, the validation, the compassion, they're all essential. Okay, but they really need to benefit from more. And in some cases, we're not even sure maybe what that more is at this point. I think you and I have our theories on it. But again, I just want to make sure they understand what we're doing here now. If we're not blaming them, what we're doing is we are supporting them. The goal to this conversation, and also, is not to protect betrayers. Okay, what it is again, how do we help them find their spirit again, the betrayed partner, so that they can heal? That's what we're looking to do.
Right. And yet we're looking at it within the larger constructs of the system that we work in. And, it's kind of like sex educators, therapists, and counselors that belong to a sect. They absolutely don't believe in sex addiction, and they have a disclaimer on their homepage. We do not believe in sex addiction.
Right.
Now, we have many professionals that are ASEC trained and also CSAT or APSATs trained.
Right.
So it's not everybody, but
So,
I understand that. I agree that we can disagree. They're coming from a place of we don't want to pathologize anything sexually. And so by coming from that place, they have to do that.
mhm,
And Eddie, you and I have been trained uh, that I'm supposed to be porn neutral. And I ascribed to that for a couple of years until I got smarter for me. And
mhm,
I said, pornography hurts a lot of people. It hurts the sex traffickers. It exploits them. They exploit the people we work with. It absolutely, in my estimation, is a betrayer to our partners who don't want their husbands or wives looking at pornography. And so everybody loses within this system. Now, that's not clinically what I'm supposed to say or believe. I'm supposed to and when they say be porn neutral, they want me to say some couples can look at porn and not get addicted and enjoy it and use it to fulfill their sexuality. I also think it's an extra person in the room, and I'm not about that. I'm not into
right,
polyamory.
right, right. And you know what, Carol? But see, Carol, I think this is why people have great respect for you. It's because, just like me, we speak what we believe is the truth. Okay, even though again, all right, we're trained as clinicians and we're told again that sense of balance and stuff, which is great. I understand, but we also see through the idea. For example, I'm not going to say, well, I'm not quite sure what the definition of a woman is. Okay, I know what the definition of a woman is, and if people don't like that, I'm sorry, but Eddie Capparucci believes this is a woman, this is a man. And it's the same thing here when we're talking about sex addiction, when we're talking about compulsive disorders. We have looked at not just all the data that's out there, but we have sat in the trenches for years with these people, with real people in front of us, people who are just devastated. Their lives have been blown apart. And we have watched all of that unfold, and we've watched in many cases how it's been rebuilt. So based on that, I think we have the right to be able to say, you know what, this is what we believe to be true.
Well, and I agree with you. And so when I'm making referrals to groups and organizations, whether it's 12-step groups or whether it's partner support groups, I really want to make sure that that my clients are being supported while they're learning how to cope, while they're learning grounding and resourcing skills to, as you said, really teach them not only regulation but co-regulation,
Yeah.
and so that they can calm the body down to realize that if they can stay consistent with that, there's a good chance they'll be able to make an informed decision of what they need to do next. Not every one of our partners, as we looked at, is healing elusive for some betrayed partners. The truth is, I don't think all of our couples should stay together.
I
I think, yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you too. But again, that's something that we should not be saying. We should not be talking about. And I don't tell people to separate. I don't tell people they should not be together. That is not, I don't believe that's my job.
It isn't.
However, there are couples I see and you just know, you know what? This is too far gone. There are times when things are too far gone. And we have to just accept it, as heartbreaking as it may be, not just for us, but for them, for their family, all of it. But again, if we just bury our heads in the sand, we are doing them a greater injustice. a greater injustice. So I don't sit there and tell, oh yeah, you should leave. What I'll do is I'll show them pathways and say, okay, these are your different pathways. Tell me why you feel like a pathway may not be a good one, why it's scary, why it is something that, you're wavering from, but you feel like I should still be there. Tell me which pathway you want to look at, and I'll walk with you on it.
Right. And I will even say, I have to be very delicate, but I will say to a partner, you have been traumatized and run over by a truck over and over and over again, especially if we have someone with compulsive problematic sexual behavior and they continue to slip or they continue to relapse.
Yeah.
But at some point, the partner does get to make a choice. In APSATs, we say you can make the choice to stay because you're too tired, because you don't want to split up the family, because you don't want to split up the finances, the furniture. You get to decide.
Yeah.
And yet, what I really believe is that when partners are in a relationship that feels toxic and or they become toxic, they can't see anything good that's coming out of the relationship or that's coming out of the addict.
Yeah.
Then they become part of the problem because they've been through so much trauma that it has hijacked their brain.
That's exactly, it killed their spirit. Their spirit has been destroyed. And with those people, what I ask the question, I go, okay, so you just sat here and you talked to me about how you are so demoralized that you feel there's no hope because he cannot get himself together. Why are you still here? Why are you still in this relationship? And let them kind of play that out to say what it is. And many of them are those issues that you brought up before. Don't want to break up the family, the finances, outside pressures. Like, oh, my parents would be so upset if I, were to divorce, or the church will be upset if I divorce. There's just so many different reasons why people stay together. But again, just to have them to be able to say, look, analyze for yourself what is keeping you in this toxicity that is actually killing you. It's killing you because, again, the neurotransmitters and hormones that you're developing right now are just, they are, again, toxic, and it's really destroying the body. So I think we have to have conversations in that way, but we can't go over the edge. And I've heard from clients over years, many of them, oh yeah, that therapist told me to leave them. Yeah, that therapist told me I should leave her. And I don't think we should be going to that extreme.
To our listening audience, you're listening to Eddie Capparucci, and I discuss a very delicate situation because it's really about the partner who can't heal and what are the components that could be adding to that. And now we're in that place where we're even talking about partner choices, which may be very, very legitimate. Now I'm going to talk about some choices that aren't legitimate. I mean, I have had partners say, and I so applaud their honesty. They've said, I'm not leaving him because then all this work he's done on himself will go to somebody else. And I'm not doing that. Or I'm not leaving him because he deserves to be punished for the rest of his life.
Yeah,
And I say, if you are doing this out of the first one, I understand that you don't want to give the better side of the man that betrayed you a chance to be with somebody else. And yet, for the woman that wants to punish her husband forever, I mean, I feel like she's punishing herself in that equation.
That's exactly what she's doing, Carol. That's exactly what she's doing, because what she's doing is she's allowing resentment and bitterness and hatred to remain inside of her, which again is eating her alive. And you don't get an abundant life with that type of approach. So therefore, and again, I understand the concept that I've had several women say it to me also. They said, I'm staying with him because I just want to make his life miserable. Okay?
Yeah.
I get it. I understand. But you're not making your life any better with it. But to go back to your first point about the idea of, well, I'm not letting him go because he's not going to, I'm not going to let somebody else get him because he's a better man. Like, okay, then what is it going to take for you to start to accept that better man, to embrace him, and and bear the fruit of what that relationship could be right now? And again, as we well know, the problem with that is what's keeping them from doing that is fear. The fear that, oh, if he feels like I'm okay, everything's okay, then will he go back to doing what he did before?
Oh, yes. We hear that hundreds of times, don't we?
Right, right. And no one, you, me, no one else out there can 100% guarantee to a betrayed partner, your partner will never stray again. You will never do anything that will break your heart from this standpoint. We can't do it. But you know
Well,
what?
I say, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. What do you say?
Well, I say that marriage is the hardest thing in the world, Eddie. I mean, John Gottman, Harville Hendricks, they all say it is the hardest thing in the world. If you want to grow yourself up, get married.
Yes.
And then if betrayal occurs, what I consider to be the worst thing in the world in a relationship next to the loss of a child,
yes,
you are really compounding the pain, the anger, the sadness, the resentment, all that stuff. But we have seen couples heal from that. They don't heal if they look at the addiction. No, let's say it differently. If they look at the addict as an abuser.
Yes. Oh, here we go, Carol. We're going to bring this up. Okay. That word abuser has been, I guess it's been a couple of years now that we saw that, come out in this field. I'm not going to argue that what men like I have done in the past have been abusive. Okay. They're abusive behaviors, right?
You mean
Deceiving,
lying and cheating
right,
and
lying, cheating,
deception?
all that stuff. Exactly. It's all. But when I look at an abuser is someone who intentionally sets out to hurt and control another person. Now, I don't know about you, but I've worked with over 1,000 men, okay? And I could put them in the palm of my hand, the number who I would say those are the type of men they were. There were very, very, very few. These men engage in abusive like behaviors, okay, because of one, the addiction, because their compulsiveness and trying to cope with things that they can't cope with, and their emotional immaturity. See, they're of the mindset, and this is universal with them. Oh, nobody's going to get hurt because she's not going to find out. So I'm not hurting anybody. And it's like, no, you are, including yourself. So therefore, for me, I struggle with the word labeling them abusers because one, there's enough shame to begin with. you start taking this label and putting it on these men, what you're doing is you are creating a larger divide between them and their partner. And a divide that I think basically is almost impossible for anybody to come back from. I mean, if my wife were to sit and think of me as an abuser, it would crush me to the point of, I don't know if it would ever be able to repair the relationship from my end. Because I know in my heart, I am not an abuser, because there's never been the intent. I know people say, oh, intent doesn't matter. But you know what? In this case, it does. The intent was never to control, to dominate, and to intentionally hurt her. Those things happened, but they happened because of my being so naive and being so oblivious to the fact that what I was doing, if it did become obvious, it was going to crush her. Because I thought, you know what, she's never going to find out. So it's not going to crush her.
Patrick Carnes told me, well, he's told all of us in the 30 Recovery Task Kit, denial is the number one thing that we as professionals have to help addicts out of when they continue to go back. And there's big denial, kind of like big T, little t. There's big denial, and that's when an addict goes back to those behaviors that are deceptive. And then there's little denial where they don't even know they're fooling themselves, looking at yoga pants in a catalog and watching a commercial that's provocative. I mean, the brain doesn't know the difference between provocative images and pornography. It lights up the same. And so Patrick said we got to keep them out of denial. And your point that abuse is when you intentionally manipulate somebody to try to hurt them versus when you are in denial and you think you can get away with something, aka addict behavior, because they'll never know. And then they find out, oh my gosh, she's in the fetal position on the floor because she found out. And they feel crestfallen. They feel heartsick. They feel so much self-loathing that they could have done that. And that's not an abuser. That's a man who was in denial.
Yeah. And again, you know what? We need to make sure and emphasize the idea that accountability is essential no matter what way you look at it. Okay? That we have to have accountability. We have to own what we've done. All right? But let's be smart about things. I mean, again, it's like, go back to the woman who wants to punish, or even the women, or a lot of women who just cannot find the skills necessary to learn how to ultimately regulate themselves. I mean, you keep taking out that Louisville slugger and you keep whacking this guy, what are you going to have left? What are you going to have left? I mean, if you want a puppy dog, go buy yourself a puppy. Okay? If you want a man, then sometimes what you have to do is say, you know what? Okay, I'm going to give you the opportunity. I'm not going to run your recovery for you, but I want to know what you're doing. I want you to keep me in the loop. I think we should be doing this together as a couple. Okay.
For her safety.
Right, for her safety. Yes, you took the words out of my mouth. For her safety.
Sorry.
Okay. I went, no, you don't have to apologize. And that's really important. And besides, you know what? Her micromanaging, her being so hyper vigilant, that just keeps her autonomic nervous system in this constant state of, just
dysregulation.
Yeah. She's just scanning all the time. Well, I want her to relax. All right. Now, again, if the guy's not doing his work, all right, then to your point, I think she's got bigger issues she has to do. When I do my podcast, I always get these questions. It's like, well, it's been 5, 6 years and he's still acting out this way, still acting that way. What can I do to get him to change? Well, first and foremost, I don't have enough time to answer that question right now. And second of all, I think your focus is in the wrong area. It shouldn't be on what you can do to get him to change. Well, your focus should be on what do you need to do to escape the madness.
Exactly. Escape the chaos and take care of herself
Yes.
and give herself self-compassion. And oftentimes that may lead to some things like, I need less time with him, or maybe we do need a therapeutic separation.
Right.
She will know, they will know, if they give each other the chance to, as you said, regulate and begin to trust their guts again.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've got a zillion questions and a zillion thoughts, but we have to end for today.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you would add, that you would give in terms of your own insight for couples that are in chaos and can't find that regulation?
Right. Well, I think one thing I want to really make clear is that, I don't think you and I are asking betrayed partners to do more work. Okay. What we're asking them to do is to be able to take a step back from all of the heightened emotions that they're facing. And again, I understand it's trauma and I understand how trauma works, but to be able to learn how to take a step back to regulate for their own benefit. That's what this whole dialogue's been right now. It has been about her safety and her emotional sanity. Okay, the guys, yeah, I want the guys to wind up coming back and being in a healthy relationship with them. But right now, I am more concerned about these women who I've watched lives be lost. And you know what? We as a community, we as healers, we need to be doing something about these women and men who just can't find their way. And I am tired of hearing some of my colleagues say, well, some women never heal. I don't think that is the approach that we should be taking. I mean, that empathy or apathy that we have. And we can't have that. Because I think everybody can heal. But everybody can't heal to the same cookie cutter.
Right. And they have to choose where they shift their energy.
That's correct.
And I think that's what you were really saying, is that it's time to decide, hold ourselves accountable, all of us, whether we're practitioners, partners, addicts. What do I need to do to feel better?
That's right. And I think we need to have more of this dialogue as practitioners so that we can come up with other things. My wife Terry and I, we came up with the book, The Going Deeper for the Betrayed Partner. And therefore that looked at the traumas that they've had in their past that are maybe impeding their ability to deal with the trauma they're facing now. So see, those are the things we have to look at. That's not for everybody. It's for a handful. Mm-hmm. But that's what we have to do. We have to start breaking them apart and start looking at them as subgroups. Okay, because what's good for this one is not good for that. And that's why you get a lot of the problems in the groups or with therapists who take their story and they make it everybody else's story. And that's a complete injustice.
Eddie Capparucci, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, for having this dialogue with me. It's been a couple of years coming, and let's do it again. Okay?
Yes, please, let's do that. Thank you, Carol. I appreciate you giving me the forum for this. I thank you for your bravery in being able to talk about this subject, because we know it's difficult and we know not all our peers agree with us, but we see a bigger issue and we want to be able to help everybody.
Well, and I suspect there will be peers out there, practitioners that think, they're talking about me. And, if you feel that way and you want to come, I believe in healthy relationships, conflict breeds intimacy. So
Yeah.
if you feel like indirectly we were pointing the finger at you, please come to us. We just want to enlighten each other and grow by your thoughts and feelings. And again, Eddie, we will talk again soon.
Mm.
Thank you.
Blessings.